Hi, I'm Dr. T, and welcome to my office. Today I'd like to talk a bit about carbohydrates, otherwise known as sugars. So carbohydrates are a rather interesting group of biopolymers. They're all going to have an empirical formula close to CH2O, which is where they get their name. It's kind of like carbon meets water meets molecule. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit odd. But with these guys, their monomer is going to be called a monosaccharide. Saccharide is kind of a word for sugar. So we have a monosaccharide. These typically are going to form rings, although they don't have to be locked into a ring shape. In an aqueous environment, they're going to spend most of their time in a ring, although they can open and close. Now, as just monosaccharides, they can float around. Glucose is, of course, a classic one, as well as fructose. These quite often are used by organisms for fuel sources. Your blood sugar is glucose. That is used by cells within your body to provide the necessary energy. You'll notice a trend. Carbohydrates typically are going to be fuel. Now, you can form disaccharides by sticking two monosaccharides together. There are some interesting chemical reactivity benefits, as most of your monosaccharides can do a little bit of side damage, as they typically contain carbonyls. By sticking them together, you limit the ability for them to do collateral damage by doing odd reactions that you didn't particularly want to do so. Sucrose actually eliminates this problem by making itself what's called a non-reducing sugar, or sugar that's not able of giving random electrons away and causing weird damage. This is why trees don't get diabetes, even though their sap is like a lot of sucrose in there. It's seriously double-digit percentages. Whereas if you were to have that much glucose in your bloodstream, you would be good and dead. Now, disaccharides, a classic case. A couple other examples is that of lactose, that is found in the milk of mammals, produced by the mammary glands of female mammals, and is once again a fuel source for their young. Interestingly enough, the way that it is connected makes it difficult for most enzymes to break down. You require a specialized enzyme to break down lactose. Now, most mammals, let's see if I can talk, manufacture that enzyme only when they are young and consuming their mother's milk, after which they stop making the enzyme because it's not needed. Why would you drink milk if you're not a baby mammal? Because it's tasty, that's why. So as humans, some of us have a mutant superpower. We can drink milk, or I should say we produce lactase, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, through adulthood, although it does decrease steadily over the course of our lifetime. That said, that's actually a minority of us. Most people can't drink milk, at least without taking a lactase tablet or making sure it's a heavily processed milk like a hard cheese or some types of yogurt. Now, moving on, there are oligosaccharides. These are the oligomeric form. See back to my video on polymers. In short, these are a few, 4, 5, 6, maybe a dozen or so monosaccharides strung together. These typically are done for things like communication. They can be stapled onto other biomolecules like proteins and will act almost like shipping labels. Additionally, the ABO blood group that identifies your blood cells as sort of yours is a oligosacharide, is an oligosacharide, I should say. Polysaccharides are typically going to be used for fuel or support. So starch and glycogen are two typical energy storage polysaccharides. Starch for plants, glycogens for animals. Both of which are a long chain of monosaccharides that do branch off. The more branches it has, the more readily available the energy is to extract quickly. As you can guess, animals having the more aggressive and energetic lifestyle than a plant have glycogen, which is much more heavily branched than starch. Now, you could also use these guys for support and structure. In this case, structural polysaccharides are typically made with a linking that's much harder for enzymes to digest, what we call a beta-glycoside bond, as opposed to an alpha-glycoside bond, as is found in fuel-based or fuel-intended polysaccharides. And structural polysaccharides, such as cellulose and chitin, don't typically possess branches. They typically nice long chains that pack nicely together. Now, typically these won't be the only structural components. If you look at some wood, there is not just cellulose, but also lignin, which is a polyphenol. It's an aromatic compound that has lots of alcohols attached to it that cross-link or connect the celluloses together, making for a much stronger and sturdier tree. That said, carbohydrates are definitely a useful support for plants making their cell walls, for insects making their exoskeletons, and of course their sweet, sweet energy for us. So with that said, have a wonderful day.